Hey, this is Paula from Plantland again. We're going to do a short little class today on just on growing potatoes. Potatoes are one of the easiest things that there is to grow in the garden. It's something that you get a lot of yield from a very small amount. If you planted just a small row of potatoes, if you planted an 8 to 10 foot row of potatoes, you could get as much as 100 to 150 pounds from that row. And most families, 100 to 150 pounds of potatoes is more than enough potatoes for you, unless perhaps you're Irish. So, the first thing you need to know about potatoes is what you start with. You're going to start with what we call a seed potato. These potatoes are actually ones that we sell from bins here at Plantland by the pound. It's actually important that you buy certified seed potatoes. You may not know this, but Northwest Montana is home to a very large potato growing industry, including seed potato growing industry in Lake County and both up here in Flathead County. The fact that these are certified seed potatoes means that they've been certified safe from viruses that potatoes can carry that could possibly decimate that industry. A few years ago, we did have issues with some problems with diseases that have gotten into the commercial industry. So it's very important to buy certified potatoes. The second thing to know about buying these kinds of potatoes is supermarket potatoes, which are often quite tempting to purchase because you're in the supermarket, you think about it, you may see a variety that you like or something. Supermarket potatoes are usually treated to prevent sprouting. Excuse us, the phone is ringing. That's that sound you hear. That treatment that's put on supermarket potatoes to prevent sprouting is going to prevent them from sprouting in your garden. Now, I know some of you are going to say, oh, they sprout in my potato drawer or whatever all the time. The thing is, it probably takes many, many weeks, even perhaps a month and a half, for them to sprout in your potato drawer. So it's important that you buy potatoes that are meant to be used for growing. So seed potatoes here, you're going to look for seed potatoes that are nice and firm, nice and healthy, and you're going to cut them into pieces. A potato this size you would cut into perhaps 4 pieces. On potatoes there are little eyes, little indentations, and for those pieces that you cut up, you want each one to have 2 to 3 of those eyes on it. After you've cut the potatoes up, you want to do that fairly close to when you're getting ready to plant them, because you don't really want the potato piece to dry out before you get it in the ground. One of the things that helps prevent a disease that's very prevalent when you grow your own potatoes is sulfur. Naturally occurring element, sulfur is. So you take those cut pieces, you sprinkle a little bit of sulfur into a paper grocery sack, put the cut pieces in and shake it so they get coated nice with all that sulfur. And don't worry too much about handling sulfur without gloves. You can use gloves, but it's not something that's particularly toxic as just something you touch on your skin. So sulfur is something we recommend to prevent scab, which is one of the big problems we have with potatoes here. The next thing you're going to want to know about is how to plant them, and it's actually a very specific process. We have a pretty comprehensive handout that's on our website, plant-land.com. It tells you a lot about growing potatoes and how to do that. So if you missed some of the things I say today, you can go to the website and download that handout. When you're growing potatoes, you want to have as good a soil. Now we have rain coming on the greenhouse, and that's the sound you're hearing on the background perhaps. I'll try to talk louder. One of the things that you need to have is very good soil. There are lots of different ways to grow potatoes. It's a very commonly grown container product. Meaning that you can put them in just different kinds of containers and grow them very easily that way. We actually sell ones that are called potato bags. A bag like this, you would probably put 4 to 6 pieces of potato in, and you could expect to harvest as much as 25 to 30 pounds of potatoes out of this bag. There are other kinds that are just a little prettier. When I was a kid, my granddad grew potatoes in old tires, and you're going to understand why when I start to explain the layering process for potatoes. He would basically put one old tire down, plant the potatoes in it, and then as he needed to add soil for the potatoes, which I'll get to in just a second, he would continue to stack tires until he had about a 4 tires high stack. Now this is on an old farm, so it didn't matter kind of what it looked like. But that stack would give him a nice harvest, and he could get 100 to 150 pounds out of that stack. So when you're growing potatoes, you're going to have the best possible soil. It needs to be loose. You don't want to have real clay soil. If you're doing it in your garden, we typically do it with a trench. So you're going to dig a trench that's about 15 inches, 12 to 15 inches or so deep. You're going to plant your potato pieces in the bottom of it, and then you're going to put 2 to 3 inches of soil on top of those potato pieces. If you're planting in a container, it's the same idea. You're going to put the pieces, some soil in the bottom, you're going to put the pieces on top, and then you're going to put 2 to 3 inches of soil on top of those pieces. As the potato grows, as greenery comes up, as the stems and green leaves come up, when they get to be 2 to 3 inches high, you're going to add additional soil and you're going to bury those leaves so that only the top of those leaves are showing. And over the course of the growing season, that's what you're going to continue to do. You're going to let those grow, you're going to put more soil in. You're going to let those grow, put more soil in. So in a trench, you need to leave soil next to the trench that you're using so that you have soil to keep putting on. And you want fairly rich soil. You do not, however, want soil that's so rich in nitrogen. And this weekend when we talk about gardening, we're going to talk about soil testing. You don't want soil that's so rich in nitrogen that your potatoes are going to mostly produce plant and not produce tubers. You actually want soil that's higher in phosphorus, the middle number, because that's what helps with good root development. So you're going to, if you're in a trench, you're going to keep adding soil until you get mounded up and you've got your potatoes, your original potatoes, buried at the bottom of that 12 to 15 inches. If you're doing it in a container, you're going to keep adding soil until you get up to the top. You know, you want to leave maybe this much headspace at the top. One of the big advantages of these kinds of containers, although you can do it in a row, is they have these little sneaky pockets that you can put your hand in and feel around when you've got your bag about 3/4 of the way full, and that's how you harvest new potatoes for something like a really good German potato salad that you want to use new potatoes for. If you want to do that in your row in the garden, all you want to do is dig very gently with your hands. Another reason that it's important for that soil to be loose, and pull out some of the new potatoes. You're not going to harm anything to do that. Potatoes need to grow over the whole course of the summer. They need good, even water, like all garden plants do. And what we mean by that is we never want the soil to completely dry out. We never want the soil to get too soggy. As far as timing for planting your potatoes, the soil needs to be somewhere around 50 to 55 degrees. In some parts of the valley, down on Flathead Lake, for example, we're probably pretty darn close to that, and planting potatoes would be fine. In other parts of the valley, a little further north, where the snow hasn't quite melted off, you're going to have to wait a little bit to plant potatoes. You can use a soil thermometer, which we have here at Plantland, to test the soil temperature of soil, the temperature of your soil. And that's something, again, that we'll be talking about Saturday during our garden class. Your potatoes are ready to harvest. You'll start to see flowers coming out on the plants. And once you start to see those flowers, it's an indicator that it's produced all the underground tubers that it's going to produce. And so you can start digging the potatoes up and harvest them. Potatoes keep very well. Some varieties keep better than others. On our sheet, we list the varieties that we sell here at Plantland. And we have their qualities, their cooking characteristics, and their storage characteristics. It can be really important if you're planning to store a lot of potatoes that you don't buy ones that are not good keepers. At the end of this, when I finish in just a few minutes, we're going to give you the opportunity to post questions, and we'll help answer those questions. The other thing to talk very quickly about is fertilizers. You're going to use pretty good soil for this project, but when you are growing them in the soil or growing them in the bucket, we like to recommend the Happy Frog fertilizer. You'll see that this one is fruit and flower, which has that higher middle number. It's 4 in nitrogen, 9 in phosphorus, and 3 in potassium. That 9 is really good for vegetables that you're trying to grow a root ball for, something like potatoes or beets or carrots. That's about all there is to talk about potatoes. Plantland has a really good selection still of seed potatoes. It doesn't hurt to buy them early. We do run out of them sometimes for some of the folks that have to put their potatoes in later in the valley. So it doesn't hurt to buy potatoes a little bit early. If you take them and store them in the paper bags we're going to sell them to you in, you can just store them in a cool, dry place, and they'll keep just fine until you're ready to plant them. So this is Plantland again. We're trying this new idea. We hope it worked. We hope the sound was a little better this time, despite the rain and the phone. So thanks for joining us, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. We're going to do some other seminars this week, and then this Saturday we're going to do a much longer seminar on Vegetable Gardening 101. That class is going to cover things like soil and soil testing and soil amendments, water and light, and we're not going to really talk as much about specific vegetables as we are just about getting ready to garden, and we will include a section on container gardening. So thanks for joining us, and happy gardening!